Welcome back to The Explainer. I am just absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we have a truly fascinating topic lined up for us. We're going to explore Dr. Robert A. Peterson's deeply insightful lecture on how God reveals himself. And we're not just talking about through the vast cosmos, but from the inside out. We're looking at the profound ways theological concepts like internal general revelation and providence actually shape human experience. So get ready to look inward and then zoom way, way out as we unpack this incredibly structured analysis together.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with the law on the heart, move into our built-in desire for eternity, distinguish between internal versus external revelation, then take a look at providence and good gifts, and finally, we'll wrap up with the unknown God revealed.
Right off the bat, let's lay down our theological framework. Dr. Peterson points out that general revelation, meaning revelation that's given to literally all people, in all places, at all times, basically falls into three distinct categories. First, you have external creation, which is found out there in the physical world. Then there's the internal conscience, situated right inside the human heart. And third, providence, which is displayed through things like history, seasons, and weather. Keeping these three categories in mind is going to be your master key for everything we're about to discuss.
All right, let's dive into Section 1, the law on the heart.
So, pulling from Paul's letter to the Romans, the core thesis of our explainer today is that specific moral demands are literally hardwired into our very nature. Internal general revelation essentially means that human beings aren't just creatures, we are actual revelations of God ourselves. Dr. Peterson uses this brilliant analogy here. Imagine a guy hiding deep inside a cave, just desperately trying to get away from the external revelation of the sun and the stars. Well, he still can't escape. Why? Because he's got his own heartbeat, his own breath, and most importantly, his own moral conscience. He simply cannot escape his own nature.
And this internal moral meter, it is constantly running. The lecture points out that even people who have zero access to the Bible or the Mosaic Law still naturally do the things the law requires. It's because this internal meter passes judgment on our actions, alternately accusing us when we do wrong or excusing and defending us when we do right. It's basically a built-in alarm system for justice.
Moving right along to Section 2, a desire for eternity.
Now, if we look at Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11, Dr. Peterson highlights that God has literally put eternity in their hearts. Something deep inside of us instinctively reaches out for eternal things. The great author C.S. Lewis famously described feeling this exact phenomenon when he was just a young boy. He had this profound sense of a greater reality that brought him immense joy. Yet it always remained kind of elusive. It brings on this really unique kind of human frustration because while we can totally feel that eternity exists, we simply don't have the capacity to comprehend God's grand plan from beginning to end.
There's this striking quote cited in the lecture that I want you to just pause and let sink in for a second. God's beautiful but tantalizing world is too big for us, yet its satisfactions are too small. Think about what that actually means for us. Because we are fundamentally built for eternity, the temporary finite things of this physical timeline can never, ever permanently satisfy us. It's such a profound explanation for why we're always so restless.
Okay, Section 3, internal versus external revelation.
I absolutely love this provocative question posed in the lecture. Think about it. The philosopher Emerson once said that nature is red in teeth and claws. It's violent. It's the survival of the fittest out there. So when a lion stalks and completely devours an antelope, is that lion committing a moral sin?
The answer is a definitive no. And the reason why is actually crucial for our understanding. Lions and antelopes simply don't possess the law of God written on their hearts. They operate completely on instinct, not morality, because they are not made in the image of God.
It's such a perfect contrast. Looking outward, say at the stars, the mountains, or even that lion, that external revelation shows us God's magnificent power, His immense glory, and His wisdom. But here's the catch. It does not show us His holiness. To find that, you have to look at internal revelation. The human conscience is what actually reveals God's moral holiness, His strict justice, and His work of judgment.
Let's zoom out a bit for Section 4, Providence and Good Gifts. Dr. Peterson walks us through this absolutely wild, chaotic mini-narrative in the city of Lystra. So Paul and Barnabas miraculously heal a man who had been lame his entire life. Well, the local crowd, who are speaking in their native Lycaonian tongue, completely misinterprets this and assumes the apostles are the literal Greek gods Hermes and Zeus walking the earth. Things escalate so quickly that the local priest of Zeus brings out oxen to actually sacrifice to them. When Paul and Barnabas finally catch on to what the crowd's body language means, they just tear their robes in complete, horrified revulsion at being treated as deities. But right in the middle of this intense, totally chaotic cultural mix-up, Paul makes just a brilliant pivot. He uses the chaos to explain providence. He tells the crowd that the real Creator God hasn't left them without a witness. How? By giving them rain from heaven, fruitful harvest seasons, and filling their hearts with food and emotional gladness. This perfectly illustrates that God's generosity and benevolence are a worldwide, continual revelation available to every single person, whether they have a Bible or not. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, the unknown God revealed.
Picture the scene. Paul is just wandering through Athens, and the city is utterly saturated with thousands of idols. I mean, virtually every citizen is an idolater. He starts debating with the local Epicurean and Stoic philosophers, who initially just dismiss him as a babbler. Plus, they completely misunderstand his preaching about the resurrection. They literally think he's talking about the horrific raising of decaying zombie corpses. But they're curious enough that they take him to the Areopagus, the intellectual center of the city, to explain this strange new teaching.
And right here is where Paul pulls off some master-level communication. He doesn't just attack them, right? Instead, he leverages their own culture. He tells them he found an altar in their city with this specific inscription, "To the unknown God." Paul brilliantly uses this as a starting point, basically telling these philosophers, look, what you worship as unknown, I am now going to proclaim to you. He introduces them to the one living and true Creator, a God so immense he couldn't possibly be confined to their man-made temples or manipulated by human hands.
This is where Paul connects all the dots for us today. He links creation straight to providence. He explains that God gives life and breath to everyone. He affirms the unity of humanity coming from one man. And listen to this next point, because this is just amazing. God actively determined the exact allotted periods of history and the geographical boundaries of all nations. And why does that matter? What's the ultimate goal of orchestrating all of this history and all of these ethnicities? It's so that people might actively seek God, reach out, and actually find Him.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway is this. We've seen today how Dr. Peterson's lecture maps out God's revelations so clearly. It's written on the internal meter of your conscience, it's displayed in the external power of the physical world, and it's orchestrated in the very boundaries of human history. And all of it, the whole shebang, is designed with one single goal, that we would seek Him. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on today. If all of this is woven into the very fabric of reality just so that we might find Him, are you actively looking, or are you just settling for an unknown God? Think about that. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer today. I really hope this sparked your curiosity, and I'll see you next time.